Welcome back to Dan's Bar. So today we are going to make something that's a little bit different. It is an improved old-fashioned gin cocktail. Now there's a lot of words in there that kind of don't seem to go together. And there's a story behind these. So about a month back when this whole shenanigan first started, or after it had already been underway for quite a while, the Richard Dryhouse Museum put on a virtual walkthrough. And in it, Greg Shutters, who's a guy that I had not heard of previously, but now kind of love, he went through a talk going through kind of the history behind how cocktails came to be. And what he kind of mentioned was an old-fashioned was any cocktail that had a liquor, water, bitters, and sugar. That's it. As things went along, you had different cocktails that became their own thing or their own category, but an old-fashioned started off as any cocktail that had those three ingredients, and it could have been any liquor. One of the things that bartenders kind of experimented with was improving those, so making an improved old-fashioned. So in this case, it'd be adding things like different flavored syrups, different flavored liqueurs, different things to improve upon that same basic four-part concept. So one of the things that he walked through is the improved old-fashioned gin cocktail. Now in this case, the gin that we're using is a barrel-aged Koval gin. Chicago was very well known in the 1800s for the gin production, and at that point in time it was a Dutch gin. So it was made a little bit differently, and it was almost more akin to a whiskey, and for that, a Chicago-based gin that is barrel-aged is going to make a nice approximation for that Dutch-aged, old-fashioned 1800s style of gin. We're going to combine that with Angostura bitters because it's classic, it's been around for quite a while, and I don't happen to have any simple syrup that's made at the moment, but we're going to substitute in the juice from a jar of maraschino cherries, which is very sweet by itself and will give both the sugariness as well as a bit of cherry flavor to it. Combining with that, we're going to put in just a dribble of a maraschino liqueur and then coat the glass with absinthe for good measure. That's going to give us three different improvements. In fact, 3 improvements on the classic combination of the old-fashioned using the gin as our liquor for that 4-part combination. Without further ado, let's get started. So we're going to go ahead and go our Angostura bitters, a brand new bottle because I killed my last one, and a healthy portion of bitters starting off in our glass. Moving on from there, we're going to put in just a dash of our maraschino liqueur. You could do about a tablespoon. I'm just pre-pouring about a tablespoon. Because I'm using the cherry flavoring as well, you don't probably need quite as much of that. If you have a simple syrup to add in, kind of maybe bias a touch more depending on what you want the drink to taste like. I'm now going to put in about a tablespoon, probably 2 tablespoons actually, of the juice from this maraschino cherry jar because it is sweet but not quite as dense sweetness as a simple syrup would be. So I'll go ahead and go with 3 of these. So this is going to provide the sugar component of that classic old-fashioned combination. So we got the syrup, or the sugar that's in now, we got the bitters that's going to form the second portion of that, the water is going to come from the ice, and the final component is going to come from 2 ounces of our gin. Now, Koval makes barrel-aged gin, they make regular gin and whiskeys, and their oat whiskey, quite tasty. But as I said, in this case, the barrel-aged gin is going to approximate a Dutch gin that Chicago was famous for way back in the 1800s, and that's going to kind of round it off nicely with the 4 core components. So we're going to go ahead and give that a stir, and then afterwards we'll prepare our glass with the absinthe. So, stirring time. Alright, that's about good. And with the introduction of the water from the ice that's been melted, that has rounded out the 4th part to give the dilution to the cocktail, really make it rounded out nicely. So to finish this off, we are going to coat our glass in just a touch of absinthe to give us the nose but not really impact that much of the actual cocktail's flavor. So I'm just going to put a dash in here, coat the glass, and as always, just drink if anything that happens to be left over at that point. So we're going to go ahead and give this coupe a coat. And of course we're using a coupe because coupes are the classic cocktail glass. You really can't go wrong as long as it's not a fruity drink or a drink on the rocks. Any classic cocktail, can't go wrong. Alright, we are now delightfully coated with absinthe. And now to strain our improved gin old-fashioned in our glass. Well, that's just dandy right there. But you never had a gin old-fashioned before. You walk into bars nowadays and say that, and they would not know what you were talking about. Let's give it a try. That's tasty. That's actually quite good. The absinthe really works nicely with the maraschino liqueur, surprisingly. For some reason, it gives it kind of the herbalness and the sweetness, and I don't know. I say this about all of the drinks, but it's tasty. It has kind of the old-fashioned character, a little bit of notes of woodsiness that come from the barrel aging of the gin, while still having that gin, juniper, herbaceousness that comes through really nicely. If you want an old-fashioned cocktail, maybe try one that's not a brown liquor based. Or I guess it is kind of brown because it's barrel aged. But in any case, give something different a try. This is the improved gin old fashioned. Here's to you. Hope everyone's staying safe, healthy. Until we drink again, cheers.